Story 1. Am I the asshole for being noisy? I do woodworking for a hobby in my garage. In the summer, I open it so I don't melt when I'm working. One of my tools is a CNC router. It's basically a computer-controlled router. It doesn't make any more noise than a handheld router, but it can run for a while. A few weeks ago, my neighbor came over and asked if I could close the garage doors because they were out on their porch trying to enjoy a nice summer evening. So I closed the doors, and it got hot enough that my shop vac motor bearing overheated and melted the housing since then. I've been out working a couple different times and he came over. In retrospect, it's pretty clear he was checking on what I was doing and planning on complaining again. Recently, on a weekend morning, I was doing a longer carve on the CNC, making a gift for my nephew. The neighbor came over twice asking me to do something. I explained that it gets very hot in my garage in the summer and that I needed to leave the doors open, and related the shop vac incident. I commented that weekends we generally expect neighbors to be working and making noise. I had measured my CNC router's noise level about 7 for dB next to it, and it's less than my mower. At the end of my driveway, it was only 5.8 dB. At his property line, it would be even less, another 25 feet away. I talked to my city administrator and the State Pollution Control Board, who regulate noise pollution. I believe at his property line, I'm well below the limit that would require me to do mitigation. I'm willing to work. Around evening times, they might be out on their deck, but WIBTA for wanting to use my CNC on the weekends. My longest running program was 3 hours, but that's unusual. They're usually 30 minutes or less. Technical details. The official rules allow L10 of 6.5 dB and L50 of 60 dB, measured from the point of the listener. At the end of my driveway, it's only 58, and at his property line, it would be even less. Since some of my CNC programs run more than 30 minutes, I would be subject to the rules if it was louder. But I'm below the threshold. Comment 1, technically not the asshole, but it sounds like. You enjoy your hobby pretty frequently. You should really sieve and vent your garage for everyone's comfort. Comment 2, it's not the level of the noise, it's the duration. A lawnmower isn't that bad. Several of my neighbors use the same landscaping service, which means when they come, they're within 100 yards or so of my house for several hours in a row. It kinda sucks. Maybe your router isn't that loud. But it's not hard to see why people wouldn't want to listen to it for 3 to 4 straight hours, isn't it? Comment 3, NAH. You're technically right, but I'd also hate to have you as a neighbor. Sure. It may be no louder than a lawnmower, but I've never had a neighbor that mows their lawns for up to multiple hours several times a week, all summer long. I'd probably hate them too. Story 2, am I the asshole for refusing to drive my sister's finance to his job? This happened a few years ago now, but I was reminded of it recently and wanted a second opinion. So, 17, 18 at the time, was driving my sister to one ex-fiancé 22 meters to his job every day because my sister was pregnant and didn't want to drive. His job was about an hour away, and he had to be there by 5 a.m., so I'd have to get up around 3:30 to leave around 4, and by the time I'd get back was around 6 to 6:30 a.m. I did that for a couple months, and though it was rough, I still did it for her. Though it got even harder when my mom started working a morning shift and she asked me to watch my grandma as well. Feeling like I couldn't say no, I told her I would. So now I'm waking up at 3:30, coming home around 6 to 6:30, and then having to watch my grandma from 7 a.m. to 3 to 4 p.m., depending on when my mom got off work. I did that for about a little over 2 weeks, but I was barely getting any sleep. I've also always had troubles with falling asleep, so there were nights where I had 0 to maybe a couple hours of sleep before I had to get up. Being extremely tired by the time I'd get home, I asked my mom if I could nap. But because of how my grandma was, she said I couldn't in case she did something and I needed to stop her or help her. Quick side note, my grandma had Alzheimer's and dementia. She would sometimes do things that could put her in danger of getting hurt or injured. So now, I was barely getting any sleep, and it was getting harder to be able to stay awake for my grandma. Finally asked my sister if there was any way she could watch grandma in the mornings so I could get a couple hours of sleep. Then I'd take over watching her for the rest of the time. But because my sister's relationship with our grandma had always been kind of rocky, she refused. I know her and our grandma didn't really get along, and our grandma was never really the best person. Trust me, I had to go through years of her abuse too, so I get it. But I was starting to get in trouble by my mom when she'd come home, and I had passed out at some point in the day from exhaustion. I was also having a hard time doing the chores she wanted me to do, and I just didn't know what to do anymore. So I finally told my sister that if she wasn't going to watch Grandma in the morning, I wouldn't drive her fiancé to work anymore. She got pissed and told me I was being selfish. She then used her pregnancy as a reason why she couldn't drive. She kept throwing stuff in my face about how horrible I was for refusing to help her when all she asked me to do was drive her fiancé. I told her that I could still drive him if she would just watch Grandma in the mornings. She refused to watch her, so I refused to drive him any longer. For a bit after that, she never missed the opportunity to remind me how horrible I was. Or she'd make sly comments meant to make me feel bad. It worked. I felt horrible for doing that to my sister, especially since she was pregnant. But I just couldn't do both things anymore. Am I the asshole? Comment 1, not the asshole. Pregnancy doesn't make you unable to drive. I bet you she'd drive herself just fine when it was somewhere she wanted to go. And why the heck couldn't he drive himself? Comment to not the asshole. First off, your sister's man chose to take on a job that was far away from home. It was on him to make sure he could reliably get himself there back. It doesn't sound like he had any solution for this, other than to keep depending on you. Why again could he not drive himself? It's a massive favor you were doing to drive about an hour each way. That's up to 4 hours a day you'd have to drive to drop him off, return home, then drive there again to pick him up. You were stuck in a tough family situation and were relied on by your mom, grandma, sister, and sister's man. Comment 3, not the asshole. If your sister's fiance can't adult enough to get himself to work and back, why in the hell are they planning on getting married? She was grown up enough to get pregnant, and he was grown enough to impregnate her. They are a family unit now. With a baby on the way, it's time for them to put on their adult clothes and grow the hell up. Story 3, am I the asshole for telling my mom she's not my kid's mom? Throwaway, because I just want a verdict and to be done with it? So for background, I too, 8F, and my husband 30 meters have 2 kids, 7 meters and 4F. My mother is actually a great-grandmother. She lives the kids and is very helpful, but she has this habit overstepping. So both our kids do chores. We give them things to do that they're capable of doing. My son does the dishes sometimes after dinner. My daughter will help set. Clean up the table afterwards. Those kinds of things. My mom came to visit us recently, and I've been noticing she's been doing this thing. She stops my son from whatever chore he's doing and does it for him. But if she sees my daughter doing something, she won't. At first, I thought she just didn't want her grandkids to do work because she often calls me a cold mother for making them do chores, but then I figured out the pattern and it rubbed me the wrong way because I remembered she used to do the same thing to me. My brothers would do nothing while I did everything, so I started correcting her and making my son finish his chores himself, which made her really agitated. Yesterday we were having dinner, and my daughter and husband were clearing up the table. Because it was my son's turn to do the dishes. She tried stopping him, but I told him to the dishes and took her outside. She told me I'm so cold for making my son wash dishes, and why couldn't I do it? I explained to her that we like to split chores evenly in the house, and if he's capable, he should. It was like 5 plates and cups and a few spoons. She kept going, and she called me lazy, something she would often do whenever I asked my brothers to help me out with chores. Here's where I may be an asshole. I told her she's one to talk after making me clean up after everybody my whole life. I told her I'm not going to enable my son to be F-king losers like your sons. My little brother literally had to be spoon-fed until he was 10 because he refused to eat if my mom didn't feed him. I was apparently ill-treating my son by making him do all these chores. I told her I'm teaching him to be independent, and that she may have raised 2 boys, but she's not my kid's mom, so she should FCK off. When I'm trying not to turn my son into an incompetent asshole, she left crying. My dad called and told me she's moping around. My husband says it was deserved, but he really doesn't like my mother because he's seen over the years how she treats me compared to how she treats my brothers. Did I go too far in any advice? Is appreciated. Thank you. Comment 1, I don't think you went too far. I think your son will appreciate learning how to be a capable person. Your daughter will appreciate being treated fairly. Rock on, Mom. You've got this. Comment 2, your mom treats you like crap. For your information, sounds like you don't even realize how much she talks down to you after a lifetime of it. A good husband would hate your mother. You found a good husband. Way to go for finding your backbone and your voice. You deserve Sue much praise for breaking the negative cycle your mother started. She wronged you, and she wronged her sons too. She can stay home and mope. And also for your information, if she's undermining you and your parenting, she's not a good grandma. Comment 3, she's actually not a great grandmother if she treats your kids differently like she did you and your brothers. There's absolute nothing great about that behavior. Goodness knows what else she says to them. You reached your limit, not the asshole story. For am I the asshole for not washing his Birkenstock? We have a 6-month-old daughter and a dog. We all went down for a walk. We got into a ridiculous fight around this. My husband has eczema in general. It comes out various ways. He has been experiencing itching on his feet for a couple of days now after he wears his all-plastic Birkenstock, which we only wear outside. I have the same pair. Since we have a dog, use a pair of leather Birkenstock BS for later reference for inside the house. So when we went down for the walk, he told me he is going to wear the inside BS since he thinks he has contact allergy from the plastic one. I asked him if he'd rather wear shoes or his other beach slippers. He said rather not. I then asked him if he then will go barefoot at home, because I assumed he will want to use this BS for outside from now on. Also know then if he will wash his BS when we'll get back. Said yes. Usually I wash our shoes. When we got back, it was time to bath our daughter, which is usually done. Buy him after I prepare her. Asked me if I wash his BS. I said no. He got surprised and asked me with please. Said no, because I specifically asked you when we went down and you said you'll wash it. Now we had a huge fight. I don't want to write down any of my arguments here to bias you opinions. Am I the asshole for saying no? Comment 1, not the asshole. Not sure what other argument you need? You asked if he was going to clean his inside shoes after wearing them outside? He said yes. End of discussion. Comment 2 from what's written here. Not the asshole. And honestly, I don't understand how it even became an argument. It feels like such a non-issue. Why can't he wash his own shoes? And if he didn't want to wash them after it was pointed out, why not just choose another pair of shoes? It's a tiny issue, but surely he can handle choosing and taking care of his footwear? Is he bothered by something else, and it came out in this bizarre way? Baffling. Comment 3. He can wash his own shoes. It's ridiculous that you wash his shoes. Ever. But how would you wash leather Birks anyway? They aren't meant to get wet. He can surely wipe the bottoms quite easily himself. Not the asshole. Psst, but stop babying him.